Yes, it's day 2 of our Ultimate Test 11 selections. Today our panel will debate and eventually decide on 2 openers. Their selections will value 30% of the overall decision. Remember, you still have a say. All you have to do is log on to www.sportsmax.tv Ultimate and select your team. We had an encouraging level of participation on day 1 and we look forward to more of your input. Interestingly, online voters differed quite a bit with the panel yesterday. Gordon Greenidge is so far topping the online numbers, with Alistair Cook also among the top 3. Remember, both of those players were not chosen by the panel. Let's remind you of the 6 players that the panel decided to bring forward to today's round of discussions. Len Hutton, Herbert Sutcliffe, Virender Sehwag, Sunil Gavaskar, Geoffrey Boycott, and Matthew Hayden. Don't forget, you can still vote from the full list of 12 until May 22nd. The controversial former Windies pacer, Tino, is back with us today, along with cricket commentator Barry Wilkinson. We are also pleased to welcome for the first time businessman, statistician and writer Kevin O'Brien Chang. He's sure to stir the pot. Barry and Tino have waived their right to the use of a wildcard. So let's start with Kevin and see if he's fine with the 6 players remaining and of course his overall thoughts on the list. Kevin? Welcome.
Yeah, well, hi everybody. How was everyone? How are you? Everything not too bad. Given thanks. I hope everybody's keeping safe.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah. Kevin, what did you think about? Do you have a wild card? And what did you think about yesterday's picks?
Well, the wild card has to be Jack Hobbs. All right.
So you're bringing out the wild card.
Yeah, man, has to be Jack. The statistics comes first. You have other factors, but you look at the top opening partnerships in history with 2,000 runs and over. By far ahead is Jack Hobbs and Herbert Sutcliffe. 87 average partnership. The next is actually 61. Actually, and the second one is Jack Hobbs and Rhodes, right? And I think you have Hutton and somebody's at 60. The others are 50-something.
Yes.
The great West Indian greats, Greenidge and Hinds, only 45. So Hobbs and Sutcliffe far ahead. Sutcliffe has a 61 average. Hobbs has a 56.5 average. Second, he's third. The second opener of all time is Hutton. But when you think of the chemistry between 2 people who had a 57 average, far ahead of everybody else, Sutcliffe and Hobbs. And also Hobbs was widely regarded in his day as the greatest player of all time. By far. In fact, before Bradman, the greatest batsman of all time. So it's no question in my mind. The opening partnership has to be Sutcliffe and Hobbs.
All right. Well, yesterday we had a riveting discussion based on that, of course. And if it's one person, I ruled out Jack Hobbs. Lance and Wayne, they didn't really weigh in too much on what they felt about it. Lance?
Yeah, well, Jack Hobbs, as Kevin just mentioned, his statistics are very impressive in partnership with Herbert Sutcliffe. Their 87 average as a batting pair at the top of the order, significantly better than anyone else who had played consistently. There was Alan Ray and Jeff Stallmeyer who had an average of like 71, but they didn't play half the number of test matches that Hobbs and Sutcliffe did. So I think Hobbs is in the conversation, but because of the quality of the list, I recognize that top names have to go.
Well, Tino had a lot to say yesterday. I'm going to bring Tino into the discussion now. Let's hear what he has to say about this introduction of the wild card by Kevin.
No, I think it's brilliant. I wasn't giving that much time at all to Jack Hobbs and Sutcliffe because I can only talk about my era and what I have grown up to seen and stuff. And when I look back and I see some of the black and white YouTube videos of these guys, I mean, they play majority cricket against Australia. And so at the end of the day, my opener for me personally, as I would say, is like a guy who made runs on every continent and stuff like that. So after you're talking about wild card, I don't have a problem with Jack Hobbs at all. If you're going to bring him in on pure statistics, and looking. I went to do my research on Hobbs. So Mr. Chang is right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chang. If you're going on pure statistics,
Kevin.
Pure statistics, Mr. Hobbs will arguably be a wild card. Like, yeah, you could bring him in because he's brilliant. That's his average and stuff. So his ratio from 50 to 100 is brilliant. So if you're going with that, you've got to bring it in as a wild card.
All right, let's get Wavell Hinds in. Wavell, former West Indies opening batsman and current CEO and president of the West Indies Players Association. Wavell, we had a riveting discussion yesterday. You were an opening batsman in Test cricket yourself. Are you satisfied with the 6 that we are narrowed down to? Because we started off with 12 yesterday, as we welcome you to the show.
Thanks, and good afternoon to all the panelists and to all the viewers. I think it's a decent 6. My only challenge with the 6 is, as just to follow up on Tino's point, is that some of those guys who were played probably 70, 80 years ago would have not had the benefit of playing on all the different surfaces against all the different oppositions across the world. So while I give them credit for what they did during their time and what the knowledge that they had and the surfaces that they played on, I think as the game evolved, they wouldn't have had the benefit. So I can't hold it against them because they just weren't living in those times. So when I give weighting, or give weighting across the platform to persons who would have given themselves in different conditions and in different scenarios. So statistics is not the only thing I use to measure them. I hear Sir Chang's explanation a while ago, which is very credible. If there's a one card, when I take my hat off to him for somebody who didn't play cricket, he's very astute, but I also is very mindful and try to be as practical as possible because while the numbers are there are scenarios and situations that opening batsmen go through that no other batsman in the batting order will ever experience that because they're all just don't different. So I have to give ratings to people playing in India. I will give a lot of respect to the players who played when the wickets were not covered as opening batsmen. And I have to give a lot of respect to persons who will have to travel and play test matches in short periods, you know. We play multiple test matches in different places, on the plane, out of suitcase, playing again. So all of those things has to be weighed up and to see the quality of the opposition that they play against.
All right, Wavell, thanks for your opening comments. Barry Wilkinson waiting in the wings. We'll get his comments in a short while, but let's just go through the profile of the 6 players we now have remaining as they battle for 2 spots. And Len Hutton is where we're going to start. And we'll, gentlemen, get your opinion on him when we're through with that. Len Hutton held the record for the highest individual test score, 1938 to 1958. That highest score, 364, still England's all-time record until it was topped, of course, by Sir Garfield Sobers. Third best average by an opening batsman at 56.48, scored 1900s in 138 test innings, and was, of course, knighted for his contributions to cricket back in 1956. So Len Hutton was regarded, or still is in many people's books, the best English batsman post-war. Gentlemen, let's start with Barry Wilkinson. I know you weren't born in 1956 when he was knighted, but there is a strong case for Len Hutton, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a strong case for Len Hutton, Lance, but much like what Wavell is saying, much like what Tino is saying, one of the reasons why he didn't pick him in the 2 that we'll perhaps discuss later is because he didn't play in Pakistan, didn't play in India. The Asian continent, of course, Sri Lanka wasn't playing Test cricket back then, but the Asian continent is a lot to mark and grade. Did well in the West Indies, did well, of course, in England, and he did well in Australia. He was a very consistent batsman, but I don't think that when you look at the all-round ability of being world-class, you can put Hutton and Hobbs in that group, mainly because it wasn't their fault, but they just did not have the opportunities to play a lot of cricket on the Asian continent, and that's why I have not included them in the mix-up. If I had to pick a wild card, it would be Gordon Greenidge. My wild card for Greenidge is simply because he played all over the world, and although I think he only had 1 Test century in Australia, I think Greenidge was solid enough, and his contributions, when he scored 100, the conversion rate for the West Indies winning was very good. So those are things you also must look at, and that's why we put Greenwich as my wild card.
Okay, so Barry, Wavell, and Tino are pretty set on the fact that they prefer the more contemporary players because of what they had been through. But Kevin O'Brien, Chang, I know that you are highly respectful of the players that did what they did back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. Will you be as dismissive of Len Hutton as Barry was just now, respectfully?
You can only beat who's in front of you. If you dominate in your time, you have dominated in your time. It is unfair to say they should have done this and should have done that, because there are other good players around, and Hutton and Sutcliffe are far ahead of their contemporaries.
You know, but Kevin, I was quick to point out, Kevin, that it was not their fault that they didn't play. I'm just saying that if you're picking the top two, it's not their fault they didn't play, but for me, they don't qualify because they didn't play around the world. So I'm not crying them down at all. I'm just saying it was not their.
Yeah.
Different perspective. They played on, those guys played on uncovered pitches, you know. Len Hutton, a great batsman, he would be in my top three. But Hutton was batted very slow, no stylist. Jack Hobbs is widely regarded in England as the greatest batsman. That is the reality. You ask an Englishman to pick his top 11, Jack Hobbs is probably the first batsman that they would need. So it was not matter the statistic, the reputation. It's like Viv Richards. His average is not that great, but he was widely considered the best of his time.
Yeah.
So was Jack Hobbs.
All right, Kevin, let's move on, Kevin. Now we've got to look at Virender Sehwag, who is the second of the 6 opening batsmen that we're going to look at. Very, very swashbuckling Indian top-of-the-order batsman. Averages an opener 50.04, above his career average. He didn't open all the time at 49.34. First player to be Wisden's leading cricketer of the year twice. The only Indian batsman to score 2 triple centuries in Test cricket, 22 of his 23 Test centuries coming as an opening batsman. Virender Sehwag. Let's start with Tino Best. Your views on Virender?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Sehwag being in that top 6. You got to remember, at the end of the day, like me personally bowling at Virender Sehwag when I had the opportunity to bowl at him, I always felt like he never got in lane. I never really liked to bowl at guys who never got in lane of the ball, who never got behind the lane of the ball. But even though he never got behind the lane of the ball, he was very efficient in scoring a lot of runs. So you're a big old swinger, will be flat over gully or point, and your swinger will be hit to mid-wicket, but he never got in lane of the ball. And he had good hands. He had the best. He's kind of like a Brian Lara, but a right-handed Brian Lara in terms of hand and eye coordination. The wide hands are like lightning, and I'm saying that from a bowling perspective. So I don't have a problem with Sehwag.
Yes.
He wouldn't get in my top 2 of greatest ever.
Yes.
But I do respect the fact that he's in the best place.
Any other comments on Virender? Wavell, you would have seen a lot of him. A quick comment from you on him?
Yeah, well, I played against him, very attacking, very destructive, one that would have helped India to win Test matches, so his conversion rate, I suppose, would have been good. Would have changed up the tactics and the strategy of fielding teams because of the way he goes at the bowling from the very start. And somebody who was appetite for scoring big totals and I've had 2 triple centuries. I think one was in Pakistan and one against South Africa in India. So I think a very outstanding player and deserving of being in the top 6.
Okay, Geoffrey Boycott. Let's look at the Englishman from Yorkshire, one of the favourites of many people. Knighted in 2019 for his contribution to the sport, known for his ability to occupy the crease, strike rate of 35.48, the lowest by an opener with over 5,000 runs, scored 8,091 runs at an average of 48.16, so he's one of the players in this group with an average of below 50, scored all 22 of his centuries as an opening batsman. Of the 4 that we have on, anyone here favourable of Geoffrey Boycott for this final 2 spot?
No.
No?
No.
So we skip the Yorkshireman?
I can joke about Boycott.
All right.
I can joke about Boycott.
35 doesn't work. And I'm not getting a sense here that you don't like him as a commentator, so you're using that against him, are you?
Not at all. I think Geoffrey Boycott is a pretty good commentator, but as an opening batsman, I don't think he just fit the bill in terms of his taking the attack to bowlers.
Understood.
I mean, he was dogged.
Yes, understood, and that's the consensus. We have to go to a break. When we come back, we look at the other three: Sunil Gavaskar, Herbert Sutcliffe, and Matthew Hayden. Stay on the line, guys.
Welcome back to our Ultimate Test 11 discussions. We are getting closer to the panel's picks. We continue to remind you that their selections will be worth 30% of the overall decision. You can continue to vote from the full list of 12 at www.sportsmax.tv/ultimate. Because the online votes account for 40%. We have looked at Herbert Sutcliffe, Len Hutton, and Virender Sehwag. In a moment, we will focus on Sunil Gavaskar, Geoffrey Boycott, and Matthew Hayden. But just before that, Chris Taylor, a regional cricket commentator and SportsMax analyst, was on the show yesterday. He has voted for Matthew Hayden and Sunil Gavaskar. Let's hear his reason.
This was another thing which helped in the selection. Matthew Hayden's career was always as a number 2. He never liked facing the first ball and didn't really do very well being a number 1, but he enjoyed being a number 2. Gavaskar didn't mind either way, but majority of his career was as a number 1. So he didn't mind taking the first ball. So that in itself also makes a great combination. Most of the other openers, most of them were dominant as a number 1, as in they mainly took the first ball of those openers that are in the thing left. So that was also another thing which was great, that Hayden was a man who actually wanted to accept the number 2 role, didn't want to face the first ball, unlike Gavaskar. So it's important to make a note of that.
Chris Taylor, who was one of the panelists on Monday as we started reducing from 12 to 6. We're down to Sunil Gavaskar now, and we will look at his statistics as we, at the end of this segment, will be ending up with the 2 selections from the panelists, and we'll also give the zone selection as our 2 openers as well. Sunil Gavaskar scored 9,607 of his 10,122 runs as an opening batsman, scored 33 of his 34 centuries as an opening batsman, has scored most centuries by an opening batsman, scored 18 of his 34 centuries away from home. His 45 ball half centuries is the second most by his 45 half centuries is the second most by a test opener. Wayne Lewis, you had from day one said that it's going to be Sunil Gavaskar and someone else. Those stats look pretty impressive, don't they?
It is, as a matter of fact. I just want to go back to what Mr. Chang said earlier about Hobbs, in terms of his averages and how prolific he was. I just want to say Tino raised a very interesting point yesterday that I totally agree with, because he played in the era of gentleman's game and the short pitch bowling. He didn't face any real hostile type bowling. The hostility wasn't there. The balls were allowed to be pitched up and he drives the ball through the offside, good line and length type thing. But the way these guys are batting now with the ball constantly up in your ears and your head and your shoulders and so on, in your chest area, the hostility he never faced. And for that very reason, I cannot have him in my team for that. I like the guys who have to battle through that type of thing. As Sunil Gavaskar, for example, he had scored so many centuries against the West Indies. 4-prong pace attack, even the Caribbean as well, and also in India. To me, he's the first guy there, and someone else. You talk about Matthew Hayden. He revolutionized the opening position in the way he batted. He played Test cricket like it was a one-day game. He was just going at the bowlers from day one, and for that, it changed the entire dynamics as in Test cricket. Australia, after that, during that period, scored 400 runs per day on a regular basis because of how prolific and how aggressive he was.
All right, so the panel then, we just looked at Sunil Gavaskar. As we said, Wayne had supported Gavaskar's inclusion from day one. Who is the biggest Sunil Gavaskar fan on the panel table right now?
About him? Can I say something about Gavaskar? Hello?
Yes, that's Kevin.
Yeah, Gavaskar is a bit overrated. His best series came against the West Indies when we had a terrible bowling attack. Holder, Shillingford, and he did not do well against the 4-prong. when we had our big 4-prong. His averages are better than they are in reality.
Better.
And Sehwag
Mr.
had 4 averages against Australia. So averages don't tell you everything.
Mr. Chang, those averages that he ended up with, he didn't purchase them. He went and delivered on the field. That's why he got those averages. Even in the West Indies against our 4-prong pace attack, he scored 100 against them. He scored hundreds in India. Yes, once I spoke to Michael Oden once, who said that, listen, he never out LBW, and he nicked the ball to the wicket keeper and his umpire would say not out. However, that's his opinion. The fact remains that he dominated the West Indies bowling attack. It's unfair for you to say it's overrated because that's what it is.
Yeah, to be fair to Kevin's point though, he made 13 hundreds against the West Indies. 8 of those hundreds were scored before the Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Colin Croft era, and also when the West Indies players had gone to the Kerry Packer series. So that's when Kevin Chang is talking about the facing up against Norbert Phillip and a second prong West Indies pace attack. So as I said, although he scored 1300s against the West Indies, more than half of them, 8 of them in fact, did not come against the Roberts, Garner, Croft Holding kind of pace. Wavell, Tino Best, and Barry Wilkinson. Your quick comments on that, on what we just said.
Well, Gavaskar scored, I think he scored 145, 146 against the West Indies, not out. And that was against Marshall, Roberts, Croft, and that was in Guyana. It actually was a match-saving innings, so I'm not quite sure what Kevin is talking about. When he made his debut against the West Indies... Pardon me?
That's 1 out of 13. I remember Holder and Shillingford.
That was just one example. That was just one example. When he made his debut, he scored. I think he had 2 half centuries and a century, and then about 3 weeks later, he scored almost a double. So I mean, what you're saying is
a very poor attack. Very poor attack.
But you said earlier, Kevin, that you can only bat against who is bowling against you. You said that earlier. So when
he did not perform against the good ones as well. His average is very poor against them.
I just told you he got 147. He got 147 not out against the three the best fast bowlers that the world has ever produced: Marshall, Croft, and Garner.
His average against the 4-prong was 30-something.
A man who has 34 centuries as the opener, the highest amount of centuries as the opener, you cannot discredit, even if he was being bowled by people who are blind. Simple.
Kevin, all right, Barry, let's hear what Kevin has to say, because he's been trying to say something. Yeah, Kevin, make your point now.
I am saying if you bowl against good and bad, and you only make runs against the bad, most of them, I'm not going to rate it highly. Against the 4-prong, he was in the 30s average. Anyway, that's just my view. You have to be good against the good to be the best.
Yeah. Let's get a quick comment from Tino and Wavell on this. But the fact is, as I said, he did score 4 centuries against the Holding, Roberts, and Garner crowd. It's just that of the 13, 8 of them were not against that 4-prong pace attack. So he did have some measure of success against the ace quartet, if you might want to put it that way. Tino, as a fast bowler yourself, any quick comments on that, and then we get Wavell coming in.
To Lance is that he also scored a lot of runs against Australia when they had a very fast and strong bowling attack.
Jeff Thompson and company.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Tino, join in, man. You're the fast bowler here.
Yeah, to be honest, guys, like I do understand where Kevin is coming from in terms of quality, and it makes as a cricketer you want to score runs against the best opposition. That's how you really mark yourself. That's the benchmark. But you can't pick who you go against. For me, Sunil Gavaskar is the hallmark when it comes to openers, guys. I mean, as an opening bowler, and you come up against Sunil Gavaskar, you do have a little thought at the back of your mind, like, any opportunity that arises, we need to take this guy out. and he's one of those openers. The only person, to be honest, and I'll let Wavell come in on this. The only time that I was ever really nervous bowling at openers in my entire life was two people. Was when it was Nick bringing in Barbados. I had a guy called Ron Bates. He used to murder your opponent. Right. And in international cricket was Matthew Hayden. He was just a big figure. And I guess too, as a bowler, you had to get out Matthew Hayden. It sends a ripple in our dressing room. If you can ruffle one of their best players that they stand out first, well, before Ricky Ponting, that is the guy you're going to get out. So I do understand where Kevin is coming from, and I do understand that at the end of the day, I mean, Sunil Gavaskar the hallmark when it comes to greatness, when it comes to openers.
Wait for a quick comment. We have Sutcliffe to go to.
Sunil Gavaskar was labeled the Little Master before Sachin Tendulkar was given that name. And that's no cheap labeling, and the statistics speak for itself. 4 century against the quality bowling attack that we had back in the 70s/80s, and enough against the Australian, Jeff Thompsons and company. And the numbers are there to show the manner in which he scored the runs, the quality that he has. He's a crowd pleaser, he pulls crowd. There's everything going for him, statistics-wise, and he's an entertainer. I think he is one of the openers for us to add somebody else to be of the greatest openers, my position.
Yeah, and before we move across to Sutcliffe, what I liked about Gavaskar the most is he used his shortness as a player to his advantage. He really had to work for his wicket. So we move across now to Herbert Sutcliffe. First cricketer to score 16 centuries in tests, best average by an opener with at least 20 innings, an average of 61.10, scored a total of 4,522 runs from 83 test innings as an opener, and he's described by Fred Truman as a terrible man to get out. Wayne, a terrible man to get out?
Freddie Truman can say that, obviously. Freddie Truman was one of those aggressive fast bowlers who tried to bowl beamers and all of that. He's into stuff like that. So if he's going to say this about Sutcliffe, obviously Sutcliffe must be a decent batsman for him to give him that type of commendation. So therefore, I have no doubt that he was an excellent player during his time, and of course the numbers are there to support the argument, but I still don't have him in my top 2.
Definitely, me neither. Let's hear from the panel. We're going to bring them in this discussion. Barry, I'll start with you. Your take on Herbert Sutcliffe. Does he make your pick?
No, he doesn't, because I think he played too few tests to judge his consistency. And yes, he was when he did play, he was pretty consistent. But like many in his era, having not played all over the world, I think went against him in my books. Not his fault again, but that's just how I perceive your greatness if you're really world class. Nothing against his average. I think he averaged pretty high. His average something like 60.7 or something like that. Is very, I think, the highest out of openers. But I don't think he played enough cricket for me to judge. If you're judging him from 60 tests, what would you say for Alistair Cook, who played 161 and is among the best? So no, he doesn't meet my qualification standard, unfortunately.
Okay, so we're going to move across now to Matthew Hayden. Many favorites, many people are weighing in on Matthew Hayden. He held the record for the highest individual test score between 2003 and 2004. His high score of 380 versus Australia is a record we can never forget. He played 184 test innings as an opener, 31 test centuries, and a total of 8,625 runs, is the 4th best by an opener in tests. We go to Wavell Hinds now, a comment on Matthew Hayden. Many people have been voting for Matthew. Wavell, what's your take on Matthew, and does he make your pick?
Well, a very, very good candidate, and he's there, of course, big in stature, very imposing, very attacking, and very consistent. I think he had an 18-month spell where he was just dominating world cricket, irrespective of the opposition, irrespective of the surfaces that he played on. And he certainly not only dominated with scoring runs, but he placed his team in some commanding positions right through. The Australians moved the run rate per over from about 2.53 to about 4. And that was mainly because of Matthew Hayden. At the top of the innings, getting them off to a flyer. Then Ricky Ponting would have come in the middle, and then Adam Gilchrist down at the back end of the innings to continue that attack and assault and bowling attack. So a very dominating batsman would have softened the bowler, softened the ball for his fellow middle order teammates, and they would have capitalized on it.
All right, so it's the time we're all been waiting for. I'm sure the viewers as well. We want to hear your top two. So I'm going to start with Kevin, because Kevin is back. Kevin, you have to tell me who are your top two players and who's going to make your team, your two openers.
Okay, let me tell you about Sutcliffe and Hobbs. They played uncovered pitches. So the ball rearing above their heads, the pitches were not covered. Went all over it.
I think we're losing Kevin. We're losing Kevin. So I'll move across to Tino because we want to get the top two in today. Tino, pick your top two for me.
Yeah, my top two is Sunil Gavaskar at one facing the new ball, and Matthew Hayden backing him up.
Barry, your top two.
Dito. Sunil Gavaskar, Matthew Hayden, my two favorite opening batsmen. If you're looking at the best in the world, I think those are the two of the top.
Wavell, are you going to say Dito as well? Or do you have a different two?
Sunil Gavaskar, Matthew Hayden are my two openers.
Kevin is back. Kevin, you are back. I would like to hear your top two, your two openers.
No, I gave you already Sutcliffe and Hayden.
Sutcliffe and Hayden.
Hayden.
Matthew Hayden.
Okay.
He's convinced, very convincing.
I thought he was going to say Sutcliffe and Hobbs.
Well, he brought in, he used his wild card today, so
I'd like to know why Tino is laughing. You know.
Win.
Tino bowled against him and said, great, much respect that, right?
But I think, Tino, you had said from day one that Hayden and Gavaskar would have been hard to beat, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the guys' statistics, guys, look, when you score 400s against the best bowling attack the world has ever seen in that period of time from February 1980 to February 1995, West Indies never lost a series 15 years on the top. And a guy could come and dominate, score 400s against West Indies with that bowling attack. Bro, you got to give him big respect. And then Matthew Hayden, look, Matthew Hayden was so consistent, not only in Test cricket, but one-day cricket guy. This guy was the absolute bully for a long time. Look, he reminds me of like Kevin Pearson in the middle order. Those are the two biggest imposing figures I ever bowled at. I'm a guy that likes to give guys chat. I never say nothing to those guys.
All right, well said, Tino. So former Test players Tino Best and Wavell Hinds joining us as the expert panelists, along with commentator and journalist Barry Wilkinson and Kevin O'Brien Chang, the statistician. Thanks for joining us. Our next set of discussions will be for Batsmen 3 to 5. We look forward to having you guys on at some points during the discussion, but thank you very much. So the decision has been made from our panelists. Our experts have voted Gavaskar and Matthew Hayden. That's a consensus coming from our panelists, and I can't say that's surprising, Wayne. I think many people were looking at these two from pretty early because of their compelling stats. So Hutton, Sehwag and Boycott out from that first group, and also out Herbert Sutcliffe, leaving Matthew Hayden and Sunil Gavaskar. This is just representative of the panelists. The panelists that we would have spoken to yesterday, which included Christopher Taylor, and the group that we spoke with today. And you viewing will have an opportunity to continue voting. Even when we leave the openers discussions, your votes will still be counted until the 22nd of May. So that panelist view just now will weigh 30% in the final tally. And the zone group has a 30% weight as well in our selections, which was?
Gavaskar and Matthew Hayden as well.
Gavaskar and Matthew Hayden.
Slam down.
I actually need to be using my wild card soon.
Your wild card?
Wild card? As for the opening position?
We have to go to break. Don't worry about that. Break time.